family, I want to thank you all for coming, first of all. And you are here because you are part of my dad's life. And that means each of you played a part in who he was. And for that, we thank you because our family absolutely loved my dad. David. Among many things, my dad was a teacher at heart. He made his living as a teacher. He lived his life as a teacher. And while he loved building things with his hands, it gave him just as much joy to show someone else how to do something. And as a teacher, I thought it would be appropriate on this day to read the results of Dad's life report. Now, I'll warn you, some topics he did not excel in. Some he was average, and on some he was an honor student. And we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. Let's start with the course entitled Political Correctness. Unfortunately, Dad failed this class and was asked to not enroll again. But one thing you can count on from Dad, he wouldn't mind sharing his opinion. And he would disagree with you about something, about politics, religion, lifestyle, whatever. But during the conversation, and at the end of it, you would get the same David Sumter smile. He never held any grudges or separated himself from people who believed differently. He liked it, in fact, I think. And my sister Lana reminded me today that if the discussion reached sort of a boiling point, if you brought up the St. Louis Cardinals, that put you on an even playing field, and he would love to talk about baseball forever. That was always your way out. In the course entitled Being a Good Sport When You Lose, you probably get the D- on that. Barely passed. He would kid around with you after he lost, but you could tell he did not like it very much. And just this past Sunday, he was engaged in a card game, Pegs and Jokers, which he loved to play. The game was not going well for he and his partner, his sister-in-law Dolores. He wasn't going well for he and his partner. Dad got a little flustered and said, "What's the point in even finish the game? There's no way for us to win." All right, that's how far he would take this. They tried to talk him into, hey, come on, you never know, we might come back and win. And but after he carried on a little bit, and it was a lost cause, his sister Ann, who was singing that recorded song we just heard a moment ago, Ann, who was on the winning team, went and retrieved what was commonly known around the house as something that represented people who were acting out again. And it was a stuffed monkey of all things. Well, one thing led to another, and then a few laughs later, Dad was posing with a stuffed monkey while holding a banana, and it ended with a picture on Facebook with the caption, "I wonder which monkey is going to end up with this banana." And I'm told they laughed until it hurt. In the school of fashion, it gets better, so we'll get through these. I'll be gracious and give Dad a D+. He passed the course only because he showed up in my wedding, in a nice suit that he and his sister picked out. But by and large, Dad didn't worry too much about matching his clothes. Now, in his defense, he wasn't raised with any money in his house, so you just wore what you could find, and you clothed yourself with what you had. You didn't worry about that sort of thing. But of course, growing up, when I was young, as my sisters were younger, when Dad would dress like he sometimes did, the kids would say, "Oh boy," every now and then as we'd venture out about in public, but we were kids. He once, I've got a buddy in the audience, Rico, you'll appreciate this. He once showed up at one of my track meets in college with these purple Bermuda beach shorts, all right, that were to his kneecaps, and white socks that were pulled up almost to the shorts. started. He wore a tucked-in purple T-shirt that didn't quite match the purple in the shorts. And to boot, I'm sure there was an old red baseball cap or something to top it off. Well, after, you can imagine, after multiple conversations over years that we had with him about this topic, we realized something that you siblings realized long before us, as did David. And if he does things a certain way, that's how David does it. And he just didn't care about that sort of thing. The bad part is I sometimes now find myself headed to town. You know what's coming. I realize I don't need to change these socks, or oh, I'm fine how it is, and then it hits me. Oh boy. On to the course of musical ability. He passes with a C-. It did not look good early on. Growing up, and I'm talking to my sister Lana about this just recently, he absolutely loved to whistle. And we just remember him whistling anytime there was a moment of silence. The unfortunate thing is he could only whistle one note. Now, it would vary in patterns and whatever, so you could pick up maybe what kind of song he was singing or whistling if you knew the rhythm of the song. But there was just one note. The old timers that have been around a while, if you remember the Oak Ridge Boys song, Bobby Sue. It's a pretty good song until you hear it in monotone whistling for hours and hours. And that will ruin that for you. Now, and Dad wasn't the greatest singer, but I'll tell you this, and even listen to that song, Because He Lives, reminds me of it. Some of my earliest memories as a little boy, I can still hear it. I can still hear my dad's voice singing those hymns. I'll never forget that. It just, anytime I hear old hymns, it just brings back a real sweet time. The little Baptist church in Wilson, Arkansas, my dad teaching me those hymns. We'll make it. Now, the saving grace with the musical ability, because this last phase of life, he absolutely loved to dance. In fact, can I get just a show of hands? How many of you, just help me, help my family, how many of you knew my dad because of dancing, country and western? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You brought joy to this, what ended up being the last season of my dad's life. And he talked about you all the time. So I'm grateful for each of you who played that part and just gave him such joy. I appreciate that. Our family says thank you. Now, a couple of you ladies mentioned to me in the visitation last night that Dad would step on your feet from time to time. It's all right, man. We love it. Robin. Where's Robin? Robin, thank you for picking up my dad all those times and taking him to dance. You were a special friend of mine, and I'm grateful for the part you played this one. Thank you. And the musical thing, too, he did start picking up the guitar himself and learning to play. Back to the dancing thing for 1 second. I just want to share a quick story that I heard a couple of times last night. As you can imagine, there's a large group of folks who love just good, clean fun, and good people who love good music and get together. Somebody will play music for a few bucks. Am I painting a good picture? Somebody just loves to play music. Somebody will help out with snacks, and somebody will open the doors. It's a real community feel, which he loved. Well, there was a day recently that somebody involved in that community asked to help out in a certain way. Hey, I would like to contribute in a certain way to the dancing community here. And due to something that had happened several years ago to this person and left them limited in some of their abilities. And for this person to help out in this particular way, it would have impacted the quality of the environment. So should we let this person help? for the sake of everyone else getting a lesser experience in the environment? Tough question. My dad, it wasn't a tough question to him. He was quick to come to the defense of anyone who had less. He says, we can't let this person help in this way. At least once a month. We may as well shut the whole thing down. We'd be missing the point of why we're getting together in the first place. He would fight for you if you had less. And there's the course of seeing all your dreams come true. For this, he probably gets an A-. I mean, other than getting to see his grandkids get a little older, he got to see and experience more than most. A very large, extended family who love him, as you can see. Alaska, Hawaii, most of the United States, he got to visit. In high school, he was a great athlete. Graduated college, got a PhD in education from Vanderbilt. Look that up. That's not easy. Had a long career doing what he loved doing. Built 4 houses, one of which is his crowning glory on the top of Round Mountain here at Heber. How many of you have been to that house? I know many of us in this room have great memories there. So for seeing all your dreams come true, not bad. A couple more classes here. In the someone who gives his life to others, he gets a solid A. I can think of very few occasions where I paid for a meal around Dad. I'm 43. He still wouldn't let me buy dinner for crying out loud. But beyond that, he would always try not only to pay for my meals or anything. He just couldn't help himself. There was one occasion where one of us 3 siblings was introducing Dad to the person we were dating. And let's just say this person represented everything opposite of my dad's way of life. We've all been there. But we were all of us, 5 or 6 of us, going out to dinner, and Dad had made it clear in the car before we got there when we met this person that, hey, we'll come, I'll go along with the introduction, but, you know, he's on his own, he or she is on his own for dinner. Okay, it's uncomfortable as it is, but we get through the evening fine. He could not help himself. He was going to pay for dinner. He just has it in him. Even when he tells himself he's not, he will. And of course, to pay for everyone's meal. He had to do it. I saw this message online from a former student of his. When he was a middle school teacher, a student and her sister lost their mother. And he went out of his way to make sure that family had all the food they needed. Bought groceries for them. It wasn't just food, though. If he had extra money, it was going to be put to good use. Even that house he just built, as we've just seen, was for the purpose of family and friends to enjoy. He accomplished that. Dances, family reunions, just hanging out. There's not a better place in town, and I'm not exaggerating, you guys know this, probably even the state, to sit back, take in an absolutely breathtaking view, and just get a little piece of heaven. Didn't build that house for him, he built it for us. Some other courses he aced were being honest, quick-witted, a hard worker. Never been a hard worker. And he gets A++ in the course, loving his family. No matter what we did, what we do, he loved us the same. Man, that was solid. And there was the course of getting into heaven. And he just left that grave blank. My dad knew that of all the good things he could do in the world, and he did a lot, nothing would qualify him to have a relationship with a perfect Heavenly Father. So he turned in his report card and just let God say, I'll just look at Jesus' report card on that one instead of yours. And because of that, I know that the spirit of my dad is somehow enjoying the presence of God in a mysterious way we don't fully understand. And then there will come a day when even this body that is right here will once again be united with his spirit, and things are going to be restored to the way that they were supposed to be. That's where our hope is. I'll leave you with a few just random thoughts that I've seen from various text messages, phone messages, and comments about my dad, just things I've heard. He was small town, country all the way. Loved Arkansas, loved Heber Springs. How could anyone forget Coach Summer? Sweetest teacher I ever had. Always had something nice to say. Wonderful colleague and friend. Trustworthy. David was at every softball practice my daughter ever went to. He always helped the kids any way he could. I only knew David the last 4 or 5 years, and he was the best friend I ever had. David would stick up for people when they weren't being treated right. He always had time to talk to students at UCA and help anyone who crossed his path. He was a great man who gave of himself, loved the Lord, was always kind and considerate, and always lifted our hearts. One of the nicest men I ever knew. He was a great teacher. I loved your dad and will never have a friend like him again. From his brothers, Aubrey and Roger, I went to college because David did. From his brother Terry, I started going to church because David did. From his sister Ann, I'm not sure what I'll do. He was so much more than a brother to me. He was my dear, dear friend. From his daughter Lana, he was my inspiration about not only my career, but how to be someone who sees the good in people. From his daughter Casey. My dad taught me to never give up, no matter what I'm going through. From someone else, which just kind of sums it up. I loved David. He was such a good man. And Dad, and David, and Day-Day, and Sumps,